just come down to this: the end of the 2023 college football season, with 2 games left, 2 championship games.
Two.
We have an FCS championship
Tomorrow.
and an FBS championship
Monday.
on Monday. And that's very interesting. There are 2 games left because there are 2 games separating Jericho and me for the title of what's the title?
What are we gonna?
The Diamond Vogel
Vogel.
Trophy. Diamond Vogel Trophy for the best picker of the year. Been a good year for both of us, as we said, but things have kind of cooled off a little bit in the last couple of weeks of bowl predictions. Of course, as we predicted the New Year's Six, we suggested that perhaps Tate Rodemaker was going to play. That wasn't right. Then Devin Brown gets injured, and you hate to see Missouri just rolling all over Ohio State, but that's what happened. And Penn State just got housed by
Big
Ole
game,
Miss.
James.
Yeah.
Just did not come through. Yeah.
So
started bowl
a
season.
bit of a messy week.
Started bowl season. Now still 2 games ahead of you, and then we both decided to go 2-4, which is not a good way to cap off our season.
But I would say that you went 2-4, including picking against Michigan. So that's a worse 2-4.
You went 2-4. We both got a CFP final wrong. I guess so. But
Yep. All
now
right.
the national championship is set. It is Michigan and Washington.
That's right. So you get to go first on these because I have no hope unless I pick the opposite, or we're going to pick like the Senior Bowl or something like that. The Shrine
Who
Game
usually
or something
wins the Pro Bowl East versus West? Like that could be a deciding factor. Like
that could be like the tiebreaker.
Some kind of All right. Well, we're gonna pick.
Let's go FCS first.
We want to go FCS.
We'll probably have very little analysis on the FCS game, and then probably too much on the FBS. But let's do it.
All right. So the FCS game, it is Montana versus South Dakota State in Frisco, Texas. The South Dakota State Jackrabbits are favored by, I'm fairly sure, 12.5 points. So it's an interesting line, not one that you see very often. But South Dakota State has run the table all year long. I think they're undefeated still, which doesn't happen very often for an FCS team because usually they play up, play an FBS team. Usually that's their one loss of the season. But they are undefeated, and Montana
The Grizz.
made a run to meet them down south.
For many years, Montana was the class of the FCS, and then it became North Dakota State, and recently it's been the Jacks.
I'll go first on this one. I'm really not sure. I don't have a lot of intel on this game, so I'm going to go with my heart and pick South Dakota State
Give me Montana.
to win this game. All right.
Give me
South
Montana
Dakota
to cover
State
those 12.
South Dakota State to win and cover. Been there before. It's just, I don't know.
But Montana is just coming in with the fury of the Grizzlies right now. So give me Montana out of necessity.
Ain't no
more
fun
than
when the rabbit got the
inside.
gun.
So right. All right.
Now, that was quick. We got the big one. Michigan and Washington. Both teams are 14-0. Both teams have faced a lot of adversity this year. Going into this game, the line we will be picking is Michigan -4.5.
And this is the longest my fingernails will probably be in the next 48 hours until kickoff. Yeah, we're right now recording about 52 hours before kickoff in the biggest game of your life, probably, and one of the biggest of my life. So let's talk a little bit about how these teams got there. First, in the Rose Bowl, Michigan 27-20 over Alabama in overtime in a game in which Michigan appeared to be down the better team, but due to some really silly special teams mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes, they needed to engineer a late drive to send the game to overtime. Harbaugh, not interested in trying to win it in regulation, took it to overtime after some Jake Thaw nutty play.
Near.
And in overtime, Michigan gives the ball to Blake Corum twice, and he rumbles in for the touchdown. And then really kind of a sloppy drive for Alabama ends at the 2-yard line on a QB power that's been broken down 1,000 times by 10,000 people already. We won't say much about it, but Michigan hangs on to win. And it was an exciting game, as I predicted it would be a Michigan win in a very close one.
Classic.
Classic game for all kinds of reasons, including just the Rose Bowl setting and kind of the end of this era of the playoff as well. And then we had the game that ended at about 3:58 a.m. The Texas against
the game
Washington.
just wouldn't seem to get done. It seemed like Washington would put it away and then beat up by double digits almost the whole second half. Texas keeping it close early. Washington seemed like they took a big lead, and Texas almost came back for a miracle fourth down play to have a chance to win that game, kick the extra point, make it, you win, which is something that I'm sure almost everybody was surprised to see with how dominant Washington, especially Michael Penix, looked in that game. I think he threw like 3 touchdowns compared to maybe 4 incompletions. That's really high passer rating there, and it's hard to lose when your quarterback throws like that. So Washington, exciting winner. Both CFP games were amazing, as was last year, and I think these last couple of years, really just a great way to wrap up 10 years of the CFP, because before that we really did not have exciting games like we saw this year.
Yeah, and due to Liberty's nip and tuck loss to Oregon, really nobody else, which is great, nobody else has a claim to be in this game right now. My suspicion is that if there is a blowout in this game, the number 2 ranked team in the country might be Georgia, according to the pollsters at the end of the year. But they lost to Alabama, and Alabama lost to Michigan. And so there really isn't anyone who should say they deserve to be here right now. Florida State, for all their chirping, got waxed. Liberty, the other undefeated team, got waxed. So it comes down to these two teams, 14-0.
It's what the public would want to see, because if even one team with a loss made it into the championship, there would have been like, oh well, Florida State was the other one-loss team that could have made it in. Georgia was the other one-loss team that could have been there. But having 2 undefeated teams that's run the table the whole year, it's really something that everybody is excited to see.
So, barring some kind of egregious injury or officiating error, everyone will agree that the winner of this game is the best team in the country. If Michael Penix goes out in the first quarter, they'll complain if there's a late call that goes Michigan's way in the end or Washington's way. People will chirp about that, but it seems to be about as clean and neat as you can get to for the end of this era. So we're picking at 4.5 for Michigan. The over and under is right around 55. It's wobbled a little bit as these things do. Seems like the money right now is coming in more on the side of Washington, playing the point spread, and more on Michigan just by a hair on the money line. So this really seems to be like a really good number that folks in the desert have come up with, and I will allow you to pick again first.
Michigan wins and covers. I finally chose Michigan to come through. I doubted them in big game against Ohio State with all that adversity. They came through. I doubted them last week against Alabama, and they somehow managed to beat Nick Saban with a whole month to prep. If you're gonna do that, I said last week, or the last podcast, if the winner of the Rose Bowl is gonna win the championship, either Nick Saban is gonna pull some miracle run where it comes back from having a nail biter to USF to winning the championship in an amazing Nick Saban way, or Michigan is just a more veteran-led team and they know what they got to do, and whatever they got to do, they're going to do it. And that's just been the case the whole year, no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's Jim Harbaugh being out or whether it's injury like Zach Zinner, that anything that happens, good or bad, is just going to rally the team together and make them all the more closer. And I think they're built for this moment. I think they're built to, from a schematic standpoint, to be able to run the ball and to control the clock and not give Michael Penix limited possessions with the ball. And I think that Michigan is just going to impose their will and really just be the boa constrictor that they have been all year long.
So I want to hear your score prediction because I want to hear how that relates to the over/under of 55.
So,
not that this matters in the predictions.
Yeah, score prediction here, I would probably give it. I'm thinking it's a 31-20. A 31-22 kind of a game. I don't think Washington's.
So you're right on that.
I don't think
55.
Yeah, I don't think Washington's going to score that many points. As opposed, people think they will, because Washington has not seen a defense like this. Michigan has the best linebackers they've faced, best cornerbacks they've faced, and arguably the best defensive line they've faced. And all that coming together with the best defensive coordinator they've faced, it's just something that Washington hasn't seen before. And I think that it's going to be a lot harder for Washington to score as opposed to even playing Texas, because Texas couldn't really get any pressure on Penix, and that's where he.
Did you just say that Washington in this game is going to face the best defensive coordinator they faced all year? That's really disrespectful to Alex Grinch, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, they almost lost the game too. Like, it's another thing where Washington has almost, I don't want to say hanging on by a thread because they've done it so much, but since like week 3, they have every one of their games they've won, and it's been a close one-score game, which is something that you don't see very often. It's the opposite of the Nebraska Cornhuskers in 21, where they lose every one-score game. But I just think that it's the kind of thing where you can't do that against this Michigan team. Like, you get down by a touchdown and you're kind of already in trouble because Michigan is just going to work the clock and march down the field and score more points. And in the end, you just can't really come back from Michigan. Another boa constrictor. Once you're losing by double digits in the third quarter, it is so hard to come back and to win that game, even as fast and as quick as those Washington receivers are, as good as Michael Penix is.
It's a fitting conclusion to what I think most people, us included, believe is sort of a mini era for Michigan football. A 3-year run that we could kind of see it would be probably a 3-year run with a lot of transition next year, both in the coaching staff and in the roster and in the conference. I mean, so you're going to have to play a more difficult schedule. But what's interesting to me is how I feel like this mini era began at halftime of Michigan against Washington in 2021. This is a Jimmy Lake game, and the DBs of Washington were solid, and Michigan just went into halftime and said, you know what, we're just going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball some more. And so Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum went out there, and they just paved Washington in the second half. They didn't bother to pass the ball hardly at all with Cade McNamara. So I think it's fitting. It comes down to Michigan against Washington again. I am going to be forced to pick Michigan and win, not to cover, for the sake of interest. I do think that Michigan is a better and more complete football team. I do think that they'll have the crowd advantage. I think that the betting line does include some people who are betting Washington because they want Washington to win. The numbers in SP Plus and some of the other fancy stats would have this game more like a 7 to 12 point Michigan advantage. Michael Penix was clearly dealing against Texas, but I have said all year I just don't trust Big 12 defenses. I don't trust Pac-12 defenses. And yes, Penix did look very, very good, and some of those plays were contested, but the secondary of Texas is nothing to write home about. And after all that, after a near-perfect game with a Dylan Johnson healthy for 99% of the contest, they were one play away from losing.
Yeah.
I just think Michigan is better. I think Michigan is more likely to be able to shake off those special teams mistakes, and I'm going to officially go on the record and saying Michigan 35-31. So that would be
barely
to take the Washington cover. Unofficially,
take the over too. Hypothetically, unofficially.
Hypothetically, I think Michigan wins this game by 17. I think that there's this whole thing about, well, you got to keep Michael Penix and that offense off the field. I've never really understood that logic. It's just like saying, if I take longer bowling, then my opponent won't be able to get as many pins. No, they get just as many attempts with the ball. Mm-hmm. The way to keep the Michael Penix offense off the field is with your defense, not your offense. Mm-hmm. So that whole logic of, well, we got to melt they still get as many possessions as you, because unless you take the ball away or you give it away. So I think Michigan has the potential to win this game 34-20. I'm going to take them winning at 35-31.
I also think this is a game that almost like the defensive coordinator hires and the entire defense is built around stopping this kind of attack, because this is what Ohio State did a lot of, not as much this year, but with more C.J. Stroud and Henderson and Mayan Williams the last 2 years, is they want to be more of a balanced team, but they are definitely better passing the ball and have some crazy wideouts who 3 of them will be first-round draft picks. And Michigan figured out a way and figured out who to hire to stop that kind of offense. And I think that a lot of that scheming comes into this game. Mm-hmm. I certainly think that Washington is just as good passing the ball and maybe even better running the ball as Ohio State has been.
Not without Dylan Johnson, though.
No, not without Dylan Johnson. But their offensive line has been every bit as good as Ohio State with Donovan Jackson and all those guys.
People have been comparing this matchup to Ohio State 2021. Mm-hmm. I would compare it more to Ohio State 2022 because Ohio State 2022 did have C.J. Stroud, who's a good quarterback, not like Kyle McCord. But they had a lousy defense. Now this year's Ohio State 2023 had an excellent defense. Very, very good. The offense took a step back. 2022 Ohio State's defense was not good. Of course, this was the first year of Jim Knowles trying to figure things out. And so Michigan was able to do that to them in that stadium after a week of looking kind of very ish against Illinois. So I think Michigan has it within them to really pull away, but my official prediction is 35-31.
All right. Well,
that should do it for this week. Yeah. And we'll come back with our year-end wrap-up. Maybe look back at – we should do some cut scenes from our preseason prediction and just see why things turned out the way they did and why they didn't. You preseason predicted Michigan to win it all.
I did predict Michigan to win it all, as you picked Michigan to be a runner-up.
To Georgia.
Yeah. Which still might have happened if Georgia –
Yeah, the imaginary line came out this week, Georgia -2 over Michigan. I don't know if they played. So
maybe.
Really a lost opportunity for a three-peat from Georgia. But it's going to be just a crazy game. We will see you maybe with a quick rapid reaction podcast, potentially, if Michigan wins. Otherwise, in a few days for our season wrap-up. And then maybe a brief look ahead to 2024. Until then, I'm the Preacher.
I'm the Prodigy.
Peace out.